Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in today. So today we have our very good friend Daniel. Hello, Daniel.
Hello.
Daniel, thanks for your time. And today's session is on when enough is the goal. Yeah, I think the intention for today is really because as educators, somehow we may find chasing leads never ending. Yeah, and I think it's also a common experience for many people. And many people do not know their cap. So today, Daniel will come in to share with us how to do it properly and still remain profitable without burnout. And Daniel, can you just briefly intro yourself and then you take it away?
Okay, I will put up the slides first, so it's a bit easier to run through. Can you see my slides?
Okay.
Now, okay.
Okay, everyone, can you see his slide? Thumbs up if you can see the slide. Okay, very good. Okay, let's go.
Okay, Ken. Thank you, John, for giving me the space to share today. This is really nothing to persuade anybody about, but really it's just how I've been thinking about our industry and the direction it may be heading and why our model is such as a result of that. But here's a bit of background about me first. I generally help students to perform in English at a level that reflects their ability and effort without sacrificing mental well-being. So our program is meant to help kids to achieve the best performance they can, not at the expense of their mental health. And we've been doing so for over a decade. Over that decade also, I realized that how we teach, unfortunately, cannot be separate from the market that we operate in. Today, the education market feels very stable, but the fact of the matter isn't a very stable market right now, especially given the many trends that we see. Over the years, we have seen tuition shift from optional to almost everybody having it. And because of that, we are facing penetration today. Yet, there are certain risks that we need to be concerned about. So things like shrinking cohort size and policy shifts that will only manifest maybe 10 years from now. But if we don't take steps to prepare ourselves today, then we might be in a difficult situation when the time comes. So today, really, we want to explore one question, which is how do we as educators build resilience now while we still have the luxury of choice? So how do we build resilience now while we still have the luxury of choice? Just a bit of background about the Singapore education market. For those who are my age, you remember this. In the good old days, as we used to call it, the 80s and 90s, well, tuition was optional, right? There was low penetration and it was not the default academic expectation. Like for me, I only had one year of tuition at very most when I was growing up for math, and that was about it, right? And the cohort size was much larger, so market's fairly comfortable because there's a huge base of potential students. So in the past, a lot of the growth, people like Mavis Tutoring, if you remember, those were the pioneers, right? Their growth was driven because of the population. Population size was fairly large. And then, of course, there's fewer big centers and also fewer tutors out there. So the marketplace was less crowded. So in the past, you could survive on simple things like flyers and you'll be okay, right? But today, that's challenging, right? That's very challenging. In the last 10 years, we have seen tuition become the norm. Tuition has shifted from being a remedial service to a normalized form of academic support. In fact, in some schools, the teacher would tell the kids, go for tuition if you need help. We have become a normalized form of service for the market. At the same time, that masks some of the demographic issues that we need to be concerned about. The growth of the tuition market in the last decade or last 15 years has really been because of increased participation rates. The fact of the matter is our participation rates right now are at its peak levels. You're not going to go higher. Everybody has tuition. You can't go further. So what will happen likely is the fact that the market is likely to shrink over time. So we know that for a fact because the government can only bring in new foreign students as a percentage of the birth rate size. If your birth rate is dropping, your overall market has to drop. That is just factual. So what we know is competition is going to become more significant. So that's a quick summary. The market grew over the past 10, 15 years because there's higher penetration. At the same time, there's also increased basket size. In the past, students maybe had tuition for 1 or 2 subjects. Now it's tuition for almost everything. So that's why we are seeing more demand across as well. And also parents are more willing to pay now because the country is getting richer. So this is a good time. So now we are in the period when we are still fairly comfortable. So we have the luxury of choice. So the question is, what do we do with this choice? Right? Because in the future, maybe my estimation is about 10 years. I could be wrong, but my estimation is about in 10 years' time, we will start seeing some of these concerns. If there's big penetration today, there are few newer students left to convert. So I think we are already starting to see some of these already. We are already seeing a lot of cannibalization in the market space, which is why if you do Facebook marketing or even Google marketing, everybody's complaining about the fact that the customer acquisition cost is going up. If you hire a vendor to run a service for you. The reason why is because traditional growth from increasing penetration is already quite exhausted, right? And of course, the market size is shrinking over the years. So yeah, you can fight harder to get more business, right? So we cannot rely on more students entering the market as the primary driver for business expansion. We are slowly but surely entering the period of cannibalization. This one here, as I mentioned, the reasons why we see this is because of the aging population, the lower birth rates are shrinking cohort size. This is a permanent change. It will not change. That there is no way we can reverse the birth rate issue. No way. If we can do it, Lee Kuan Yew will be very happy, but unfortunately we cannot. We know for a fact that also, as I mentioned earlier, that the government can only bring in foreigners into the system as a percentage of the population of births. So if the number of births is dropping, the number of foreigners entering, by definition, also has to drop. So, well, the market's going to go smaller. That's a fact. So because of this, we are going to see aggressive competition, very aggressive competition. We have seen some big players, in fact, close in the last couple of years. So one very big player that closed, and that's a company that has a funding size of more than 5 million, and they still close. Why companies like that can close is because the fact is, that's escalating market cost. When we first started, our cost of acquisition was not even $100. Now I think for many companies, the number is much higher. If they can go back to the days of $100, I think they'll be quite happy, especially if they hire a vendor. In fact, we are at our place in Marine Parade, we are seeing increased pricing pressure as well. A lot more hidden discounts for customers as well. And the fact of the matter is, if you run the center, rentals are also going up. So that compresses margin. So we might enter the bloodbath phase in the next few years because of market tightening. It's not just about pricing. When you have to fight harder to bring in students, you also feel very tired. And that may affect your quality of teaching, and that's a vicious cycle that we hope not to be in. Right? So the only way that we can avoid this is to have strategic resilience. You must have diversified options, and you must have very clear value propositions to survive this, especially as solo educators. If you are centered, you might have a bit more resources, but you still have to fight this, right? But the fact of the matter is, if you are a solopreneur, that's even worse. So, because less support, right? You are basically the business. So the question is how to handle this. As you may recall, the government is going to change education again. They announced they're going to have this big conversation. For those who do primary school, that will definitely affect you. For those who do secondary school, it probably will not so much, because this next change is likely for the PSLE. Secondary school will not change because for the next 10 years, the change is already set in place. We don't foresee any changes in secondary school, but it's likely to happen in primary school level. So if you do primary school, got to watch out for some of these issues. The biggest concern that we have as educators is the fact that there may be reduced urgency for tuition demand. So you shift the demand for tuition later. So when that happens, of course, the market size shrink even more. Correct? So that could be one concern as well that we need to take note of. So I personally have a 10-year horizon. I want to get out of the industry within 10 years. That is my goal. So by 2037, we will get out of the industry. Or at least get out of this industry, this level that we are operating at. So we are not trying to grow further in that sense, but we're trying to make sure that we can maintain our size and diversify into other areas. So why do I say 10 years? It's because most cycles take about 8 to 12 years for full implementation. If you look from the Go Kingsway report in the 1970s until the new PSLE review and then an O-level review, every single change takes about 8 to 12 years. And our parents only start to see at the later part of that 12-year cycle. So when you first implement that time, most of them, they still don't know, and they still have the old mindset. But after a couple of rounds, like the AL system, after a couple of rounds, then we get used to it. So usually about 12 years. So from now to 2037, if you start planning, you'll be quite safe. What all of us will see is that our near-term stability will still be there. The current state is a good time. This is a very good period. This is considered the golden years already. Not going to be more golden, I think, given the fact that we have demographic issues, right? So we must take action today to ensure that we are resilient. So the question is how, right? That's the more important question. Right? So this is a summary of all the issues that we're going to face. Right now, most tutors have this problem. They only look at education income as their main source of income. Many years ago, before COVID, in 2016, when we first came out, we had that issue as well, right? I grew the center together with my partner and we hit a comfortable size, but it's only one source of income. So what happens if I die? Then who supports my family? Right? Or what happens if my partner dies? Then who supports his family? Right? So same thing. Right? So that even if death doesn't happen, there's still market sensitivity, right? What happens if the market becomes very competitive and as a solopreneur you get crowded out? Which is actually the more likely thing, right? So what can you do to help yourself today? Because any disruption in your income will disrupt your ability to teach as well, because you'll be so worried about income. That of course affects how you teach, because when you teach from a point or a position of fear, the quality of teaching should go down. That is a fact, right? So we need to figure out how to diversify. It is a necessity for long-term resilience. That's my view at least. So what we have to do is to recognize the reality as educators. Some people disagree and can of course carry on that way. I don't really care. But the main thing for us right now, at least in our family, is to focus on reducing dependence on one source of income. My family has done that. In fact, today if we close the center, we'll probably survive. because of all the effort we put in to reduce that dependence. This is a call for everybody to decrease reliance on a single income stream before the future market forces make it compulsory to do. So we have to create plans so that we never operate from a place of desperation. Because when we operate from a place of strength, the quality of teaching actually goes up. We dare to push the needle a bit more. We dare to test things a bit more. And as a result of that, it creates a virtuous cycle. So that's my view. So why is now the best time to make changes? Because I believe most of us right now, the cash flow should be fairly healthy. Like for our center, we usually sell out by the end of January, right? So right now we are just building waiting lists for end of year. So cash flow very healthy now, which means that we can afford to make mistakes, right? So when you first start testing your diversification strategy, confirm make mistake one. We have tested a lot of things. Some things make money, some things don't make money. But right now we have settled on 2 other things that have made money for us, and which is why we can lean back on those things other than just one source of income. But you are going to make some mistakes, and you have to be aware of the fact that you are going to make some mistakes and be able to beat it. So mindset here is you either win or you learn, right? So you win when you find something that helps you to make a second form of stable income. You learn if you don't, but you learn from the lessons. But the good thing about doing it when your cash flow is healthy is because errors are manageable. Like if you wait until the market tightens, maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the road, when we really start to see some of these issues coming, right? Every mistake will feel very potentially fatal. The pain of that becomes heavier, the ability to recover becomes worse. My suggestion is, of course, to act while you have the luxury of choice, and not because it is out of necessity that you have to do it. Right now, you are comfortable, you do it, well, you're more willing to explore different angles. So that's my suggestion. Right? There are 3 general diversification strategies that exist. We are not supporting any, just say that there are 3. We are not selling anything, there's no sales in this, but number 1, I think as educators, we have to have a sense of financial literacy. That is crucial. If we don't have a sense of financial literacy, we are all in deep trouble. Really big trouble, because if your money doesn't work hard for you, you'll be working hard every day, and that's very difficult. I'm at the stage where I'm quite old already. I'm not young anymore. Hopefully I still look young, but quite old. So the fact of the matter is we need to make our free cash flow hard for us. You can put into funds, you can buy ETFs, up to you, but make sure you have something that allows your cash flow to grow. Ideally something dividend paying, so that there's money every month as well to support expenses, right? So that's one good financial investment. Another is you can start small businesses. As tutors, we have multiple skills. So we can leverage those skills to, of course, start other ventures as well. Like for example, we did most of our marketing ourselves when we first started. So we have fundamental marketing skills. We use this to help our other businesses to grow as well. Right? That's one thing that you can use as well. You have to start thinking about yourself as a T-shaped person now. What skills can translate? And then of course your dad is still within teaching. But what other skills can you expand for as well? Right? And find partners to work with so that you can grow other businesses if possible. That's my suggestion. As a result of that, if you do this right, you definitely will make some mistakes. Nobody 100% get it. If you get 60% of your decisions right, consider very good already. But you must make sure you mitigate the risk. But once you do it correctly or in a reasonable manner, you should be able to get multiple income streams. When you have multiple income streams, that will, of course, reduce your fear of the market changes. And that's what we want, right? Because the bigger thing that weighs on mental health is fear. The fear of the unknown, the fear of insufficiency, the fear of lack, the fear of whatever. But fear is actually the biggest concern for us as educators, especially because we are dependent on the market. So we need to make sure that we have resilience in that manner. When you have early strategic action, number 1, as I said, you can learn without desperation. When your cash flow is healthy and you want to pay for a course to learn something, for example, we don't sell any course, so don't worry, we're not selling anything. You go elsewhere and go YouTube and find whatever, doesn't matter. But anyway, you can learn without desperation. And that's very important. Because when you learn from the point of curiosity, your ability to absorb is far higher. I'm sure you all know that as educators. You learn from a point of fear. A lot of times you don't dare to explore and end up not maximizing the potential of what you are learning. And also when your mind is clearer, when you have cash flow coming in right now, your ability to make clearer choices are a bit sharper, I would say, because, well, your mind's clearer, you can do the cost-benefit analysis a bit more accurately, right? And of course, you also need to make sure that when you diversify, it helps you to not see yourself as just a tutor or educator, because as human beings, we wear multiple hats. I like that John is wearing a hat, because as tutors, we actually wear multiple hats as well. So we can also not just be an educator alone, especially if you're older like me, like that. You hit a certain age, you don't want to just be seen as one thing, but you can be seen as somebody who is sufficiently flexible. There's a saying, some people say being a jack of all is a bad thing, but if you look at the second part of that phrase, a jack of all is actually better than becoming a master of one. And that's a statement that I have always, to me, a jack of all trades is always better than becoming a master of one, especially in the industry that we are in, where there's so many changes, so many things are evolving. We probably need to have broader skills and to figure out what we want to do with those skills and how to monetize them. Yeah. So one of the reasons why we did it very early on, when we started our journey of diversification, it started after COVID, because COVID gave me a big scare. When COVID happened, the government closed all physical lessons. So at that time, a lot of tuition centers were actually worried because many of them didn't prepare to go online. It was unheard of. Nobody ever think that the government will close schools. We were very fortunate. We were one of the earlier centers to go online. So revenue wasn't hit much. And the reason why is because we had some checks with people in the industry who shared that this was a possible risk that the government was considering. So we prepared in advance. COVID did give me a very big wake-up call that if I only rely on one source of income, my family could suffer a lot. So that's why since then, we've been spending time focusing on expanding our cash flow across different areas and different industries as well, so that there is some level of resilience. Yeah. And at the end of the day, when we have diversified income, we don't have to worry about price wars because we can afford to say no. The power of no is awesome. Right now, if the customer says, hey, your price too expensive, I say, don't come low. Because we're not forced to discount our services. So that is important because if you want to preserve your brand value, you need to be able to say no sometimes. You cannot serve every customer, right? But you can only do that if there's cash flow coming in, right? No cash flow, you're desperate to eat, no choice. Right? Broadly speaking, diversification enables freedom. And to me, personally, different people got different definition, but freedom is built on certain foundations. Number one, you must have resilience. You must have a buffer against market volatility and policy shifts. When that happens, teaching becomes a choice. It becomes something you want to. It becomes something that I enjoy doing it, therefore I do it well. But not just a financial lifeline. If you do it for the sake of money, I think there are better options than teaching. Yeah, so when that happens as well, what will happen is we hope to see our long-term success as business owners, even though the landscape is changing, right? So when we have resilience, we have the autonomy to make a choice. And when we have the ability to make good choices, our success tends to be more sustainable in the long run. It does not necessarily have to be success from the tuition space alone. That'll be a good thing, but of course, must have success a bit broader than that, I would say. Bottom line, a quick summary. Tuition demand will remain. I'm not saying that we know tuition in 10 years, definitely still have one. Because of the way every change that the government does actually lead to people requiring more help, especially in the early years. For the English syllabus, I remembered when the government changed to the 1128 syllabus, which was about 10 years ago, the demand for English tuition suddenly spiked. Then now they changed to the 1184, the demand also spiked again. But how many more spikes will we see? We do not know. But we are certain that tuition demand will remain because of the nature of our society, which is fairly competitive. But even though the demand will remain, the size of the market is likely to shrink. So we have to prepare well for that event. So bottom line is, some people say we're going to focus too much on growing our business, go 3 centers, 4 centers, 5 centers. That's one model, right? But in a market where shrinkage is likely to happen, is that the best way to think about it? I would say no, because for every additional dollar you grow through this industry, another industry could provide you with the additional dollar with lower effort. So that's why we think about it from a perspective of diversification rather than going deeper into the education industry. So more or less done for the presentation. So welcome to take any questions.
All right, thanks, Daniel. I didn't ask the question because I'm really just processing and digesting whatever you said, and I thought it's something that I really like. A lot of new insights. Yeah. Okay, can we just show some appreciation to Daniel? Yeah, can clap for him. You can dance for him if you want. Okay, so I have been taking notes. So one of the things that I've learned is, no doubt the market is shrinking, but at the same time, when market forces are in place, there'll be new opportunities as well. Yeah, and I think it's also niche markets. And instead of being a small fish in a big pond, find opportunities in niche markets so that you can be a big fish in a small pond. The other thing that I also took down on my notes, there are so many things that I've taken down, is to transfer your skills as well. I think educators, yes, if you agree that your superpower is to teach, that itself can be transferred across skills. Because I've seen educators who became trainers, yeah, and then end up they actually in a bigger pie with less effort. At the same time, what I like Daniel shared was make sure that you yourself have more income streams. Again, something that I'm sure that you can find on YouTube, upgrade your financial literacy, explore ETF, explore whatever investment means that you want to explore. All right. Now we are open for any questions. Anybody has any question? Hands up or thumbs up if you are typing. We have one from Dan. Is it Daniel? Is that yours? There's one from Dan. Is it you?
No, that's fine.
Oh, I thought you logged in from another device. Oh, okay. I think today's topic quite team for them. Yeah. Because I think this one is about future pacing, looking into the future and also understanding how the market is operating right now. And in my opinion, I don't think all of us are at the level yet. Yeah. I think what we are looking at is how to generate the next lead.
Lead generation is a fundamental issue. You have to figure out how to do it, right? Like for our when we first started our business about 10 over years ago, we were very new, no market presence. So, I mean, we paid a lot of tuition fees to learn because tuition fees not because we go for courses, but because we hired the wrong vendors and all that as well. One of the things that our center is not a large center. I don't consider us to be a large center. We are about 200 strong. That's okay. Definitely people who have no larger sizes, they're much bigger than us for sure. But for us, we actually put a deliberate cap on where we want to grow because we find that as long as the class size is comfortable, we just carry on as it is. Because what I have found is the additional dollar in tuition, if you want to grow another, that's for me, I could be wrong. But the additional dollar that we put into tuition, the marginal return is actually a lot harder to get. Yeah, because right now, especially for center basis, I'm sure if you're running a center, you have to get fire safety from government, you have to find a place. By the time you start up, you already pay at least 80 to 100,000. If you open a second center, you have to hire teachers as well. So there's a lot of fixed costs involved. So if I were to take 100 grand and I were to invest it in something else, I think I could probably which is why at least my wife and I, we don't decide on expanding the place further. As long as they're comfortable, it's fine. Because I've seen so many centers, they open multiple branches, and what has happened is they actually have to start shrinking down, especially when rental rates go up, especially when they start bringing in a lot of students that are not a right fit. Because we actually tried opening a new place years ago. That's why we're speaking from experience. You bring in teachers and all that, you're at the mercy of the teacher sometimes. And then you're also at the mercy of the fact that because you need to bring in money at the start, like cash flow is king at the start, especially for new endeavor. You have to say no, even if it's not the right fit. But if you have one guy disrupting the rest of the class, do you say no to him? But then we went through all that already. And that's why when we looked at it, it was like, okay, fine, it sounds good to be a manager of multiple centers. But to me, well, we are fundamentally specialists in our field, so we focus on what we're good at, which is teaching, right? And then after that, use the skills that we have here in other areas. That's our point of view. Of course, other people would disagree. They say we got to keep scaling. There's no right or wrong answer. It really depends on yourself. So as individuals, I think we have to ask ourselves, who are we fundamentally, right? And then work in line with that. Don't try to be someone you're not. Because at the end of the day, if you try that, life is very painful and got a short life, man. Life, how much time do we have? 80 years, 85 years? The best use of time that we have, which is why we operate in the manner that we do. Yeah, that's in a nutshell what I have to say.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is to really understand and have high self-awareness and what is comfortable for you. While many people, others may be doing something else and it may look glorious, but if it's not aligned with you, I think it may lead to burnout or not happy with teaching.
Yes, we have seen quite a lot of individuals, we shall not name names, but
Definitely.
or centers, especially, right, whereby because when you bring in customers that are not the right fit, because not your pedagogy might not fit certain kind of learners, right?
Yep.
But they just carry on, right? So what happens is it disrupts the class, so it makes the teaching even more difficult at times, and that actually increases the rate of burnout even more. Because as educators, most people want the student to succeed. You want your students to succeed. The reason why you enter teaching is so that your students can succeed under your care, right? But when the fit's not right, it's not good for your psyche, and as a result of that, what happens is you end up just hating the job, which you actually fell in love with many years ago. What we found is if we are able to say no, all we are doing is to have the power to say. That's fundamentally it, man. If I want to summarize everything in just one sentence, is diversification gives us the power to say. That's it.
And saying no is hard.
Yeah, saying no is hard, exactly. So if you can say no, that's powerful. That to me is why we do what we do. Over the years, we have looked at multiple businesses. We invested in a marketing company that's growing fairly well. We invested in an employment company that's doing fairly well. We invested in a trading company that's doing fairly well. But we have also made some mistakes. Like we used to run an enrichment center, second enrichment center under a different brand. That was a bust. We lost some money there. We went into other businesses like remote sourcing as well. Didn't really do so well. But if you get more decisions right than wrong, generally speaking, you should do okay. That's why I think it's very important to search for partnership. As educators, we meet a lot of people. Our industry, we get to meet a lot of different kinds of people. Some of them can be your students' parents as well, actually. If you make friends with them, you find something in common, we can always explore other things. So that's why as educators, I believe our network is one of our competitive advantages, and we have to leverage that. That's in a nutshell why I think our position is fairly privileged in that sense. But we got to make good use of the time we have now. We don't have a long window, I think. 5-6 years, very comfortable still. After that, the next 5-6 years, really don't know. Really don't.
I think collaboration can come in many forms, not just money, but also reach other people's network. You can use other people's money, other people's time, other people's resources, other people's expertise. So keep a lookout and stay open to pretty much of exploring other options while there's healthy cash flow for now.
That's right, exactly. That's the main call to action, actually. Because right now, most of us would have fairly healthy cash flow right now as educators because of where the market is at. But will that carry on? Don't. No, really don't. It's useful to make friends with people out there. It's useful to go for networking out there because you're running your own centers, I suppose. It's going to be quite tiring. it is impossible for you to be the point person for the next business that you operate. It is almost impossible. But if you have people to work with who can run the thing, and your job is to give advisory services or cash flow, for example, at least at the start, there's a lot of room for collaboration in that sense. Right? So that's one thing that I think is helpful to consider. So that's generally how we invest actually. So like for every business that we do or we go into, we always ask, is there a person that's going to run the show first? Because if you are the one that has to run the show, right, you won't have the time to do it also. So you have to build your own internal frameworks for how you want to proceed next. Same thing for even if you go into the financial markets, right? Because if you have to be doing trading day and night, for example, that takes a lot of time away from your own day-to-day business. So you probably want to go into something that doesn't require such active management as well. That would be my view of it. Other people may have different views, but at least for us, teaching is still our priority. It's something I love doing. From young, I wanted to be a teacher. In fact, when I was in MOE, as a policy officer, I asked them if they could let me go into teaching. But they told me you can only teach in primary schools because I got no teaching specialization. So because of that, I decided to come out. One of the reasons why. But the love for teaching is still there. So that is still my primary goal. But at the same time, I do know that the market is what it is. So we do have to build resilience so that we can continue doing what we enjoy. So that's basically it. Yeah.
Got it. To sum it up, I think the enjoyment of the process is important as well.
Yes.
Okay, to our audience, any question? Yeah. Before I do a wrap up, give me a thumbs up if it's all good. So I know that you're not tapping. Okay. All right. Caroline is new. Sarah. Okay. Carlin. All right. A lot of process here. Yeah. I think to wrap up, I think it's very much on really working on the business. Yeah. In my own opinion, if you have read the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, yeah, there are three types of business owners. One is a technician. Because they are so skilled in their craft, they started a business and they actually build a business around them. Yeah, daily operation, customers' needs, they also attend, and then they do marketing, everything they do. Yeah. The other one will be the business owner, the entrepreneurs who build systems and they are more forward-looking and they work on the businesses. Yeah. So the mindset is different. Yeah. I guess that most of us are solopreneurs, so probably we are working more in the business than on the business. Yeah. And what Daniel has brought for today is working on the business itself. Yeah. So Daniel, thanks for your time. Any last takeaway for all of us who are here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad you mentioned the 3 levels. So basically, if you think about how success happens, right? There's a study that was done, there's 3 or 4 levels of success. The first level is basically those who solve problems. Right? Myself included, we belong to that technical space where we solve problems, right? The second level is basically those who create problems and pay people to solve it. Then, of course, the third level is those who create the whole chessboard. They control the chessboard. So that's far higher level. But I believe that as solopreneurs, most of us would be somewhere in the middle between people who solve problems and those who find new problems and work with others to solve those problems. Most of us would straddle between the first 2 levels. It is very helpful to hit the second level as well and use other people's time in a way to diversify your income. Because as teachers, teaching is hard work, man. Teaching is very hard work. It takes a lot of time to be good. And because of that, you might not have the time to run other forms of businesses as well. So you have to get into partnerships. You have to work with people, but you also have to find the right partners because not every person is a good person to work with. So at the start, my suggestion is always to start small. If you can start in an advisory role with a bit of cash that you can afford to lose, right? And if you do that, you will find that many more opportunities will come up. But you do have to find opportunities to diversify. That is crucial, man. If not, I don't know, my gut feel is in the next 10 years, situation in the education market might get a bit more challenging, especially with the big boys ramping up, right? As a small player or middle-sized player, how do you fight them? That to me is, if this space is not good, maybe you can find another fighting ground.
Yeah, I resonate with that. You can expand your fighting ground to other niches.
So that'll be the last takeaway.
Got it. Yeah. And I think I also resonate with something that you said. It's not just the local players, foreign players are coming in. Look at the F&B. When you 10 years ago, when you look around, most of them are local brands. But right now, when you walk around, even in shopping malls, right, look at all the big brands, and most of them are from China.
Yes, exactly. Thanks. In fact, Chinese are selling their math programs in Singapore now. A few of my students who are in the GEP program, they actually, when we ask some of our students, actually, where you taking your math, you should tell me online, China program. I was like, huh? It's like the heuristic completely different. I was like, really? I was like, oh. So you never know, man. So the market space, John's exactly right. The market space is changing, it's really changing. So it's important to build resilience.
Yeah, and at the same time, don't lose hope. Singapore Math also got our own brand. So you will also hear overseas kids taking online math lessons from Singapore tutors.
Well, definitely. That's exactly. So the matter is we have to fight elsewhere already. In fact, one of the things that we did recently was sell our program to Indonesia. So the primary school program, the lower primary school program, we actually sell it to Indonesia. So we partner with a school to run the program. So that's another form of business that you can do as well. Explore markets that are still needing of your service.
Right. Thanks so much. Okay, so for all of us here, I really appreciate you for tuning in. Again, we're not expecting like a huge turnout. We're just looking at alignment. People who find that Daniel's sharing is valuable for your season of business right now. I welcome you to apply just one or two strategies in your business and be ready for the change. Can we show some appreciation again for taking time out? And can you see that how well prepared he is? All the slides that he did. Yeah, he was sharing with me like 3 days ago, and then whether the slides are okay. So I was thinking, hey, I thought this is just a chit chat, but he went up another level and he prepared the slides. Please clap for him. I think it's worth another round of applause.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.
See you, everyone. Bye.
Good lunch, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Daniel, thanks so much. We'll keep in touch.
Definitely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bro. Bye-bye.